Mike, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, Ryan. I'm having a pretty good day. You're right. The weather situation over here in Atlanta, I think, mirrors Tuscaloosa a lot, trying to batten down the hatches. Hope you guys are staying safe, too.
Yeah, we're trying to. And you know, you often think about days like this. You know, it takes us back to the scars of 2011 here, April 27th. And you mentioned the word T, but there's a lot of people that have never had to deal with this. They're not accustomed to having this type of activity, you know, in the month of March. But when it begins, and it can come on you quick, man. I mean, it's it's a fast approaching storm, and we're trying to monitor as best we can.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was 1 year into the NFL. I was enjoying my first off season in the NFL, and I was down in Mexico when the tornado hit Tuscaloosa. And I can tell you right now, I still remember the feeling in the pit of my stomach seeing on CNN the video there from University Mall. That tornado blowing through town. So it's just it's scary. It's it's something you don't think about until it hits home. And for a lot of people in and around that university over there, it's hit home before. So it's something I'll never forget.
Mike, let me go into spring football. What is going through a player's mind? The anticipation of spring practice, the first practice, you get a chance to grab that helmet and go out of the practice field one more time in the spring practice that will open up 15 days of Saban camp here in Tuscaloosa.
There's a good size anticipation that comes along with it. I think it depends on your situation. You know, your playing time, what the depth chart looks like, where you are in the program. Are you a freshman? Are you a senior? For me, it changed each year. Going into my sophomore year, I had not started much. I had seen some playing time, but had never started. So I had my eyes set on making sure whoever was in front of me knew I was there. I had my eyes set on that year, giving a good impression to Joe Pendry and Nick Saban and Major Applewhite at the time, and making sure that I had my name out there as somebody they could rely on. As I moved throughout my career, moving into my junior year, we were still adapting, still trying to figure out how to be good. I wanted to make sure the communication was there with Andre Smith and Antoine Caldwell and my other line mates. I wanted to make sure that we really got a good idea of what we needed to do. I was switching to guard at the time, so it was, hey, let's work out some of the kinks. Let's fine-tune our craft. And then going into my senior year, trying to bring, new starters along next to me, trying to define a leadership role, trying to make sure that I was the face of the offensive lineman there, that I was a voice for that offense. So I think it brings just anticipation is the best word I can think of. Bring along the guys around you, anticipate what the next move needs to be for you personally and your group as a team, and try to get it done. It's a small window, 15 practices, and obviously ending with the big day out there at A-Day. But I'm telling you right now, a ton of anticipation. Get those helmets back on, getting that first contact out of the way. There's a lot of guys going through a lot of emotions right now in that field.
Mike, let me ask you about adjusting to new coaches, because that's what a lot of players are now going to have to do. There's 6 coaches out of the 10 coaches that are on the field. There's 6 brand new coaches here in Tuscaloosa. Now, some of them are in different roles, like Michael Loxley slides over from wide receivers. Now he's the offensive coordinator, the co-offensive coordinator. What is it like to adjust to new coaches and getting to know them on the practice field?
Yeah, I think it's tough. You have to establish a level of trust, right? It's you have a new guy coming in that you haven't worked with much. You've been working with a lot of the strength coaches so far, and then you have a new guy showing up, and all of a sudden that guy's yelling at you. All of a sudden you got some guy that's demanding a lot out of you, and you're like, hey, I don't even know you. You didn't recruit me. I don't know if I trust you or not. I don't know if I trust your techniques. And so I think for this spring, you got to develop that level of trust. Hey, maybe that maybe that step he's trying to make me use on my route running, maybe that is going to work, or maybe maybe this swing move along the defensive line, going against these one-on-one pass rushes against these big offensive linemen, maybe that will be a technique I can fall back and use. So I think for both sides, for players and coaches, you're trying to feel each other out, trying to get as a coach, I'm sure you're trying to get an idea of how these guys need to be coached. How can you push their buttons? But as a player, you're trying to learn to trust that guy. Trust that he's going to, put you in the right situation. Trust that he's going to push you to be your best, and trust that he knows what he's talking about. Because there are a lot of young coaches. I mean, you look at a guy like Pete Golding. He hasn't seen a ton of top-level football. You got to trust in the process and trust that Nick Saban brought in the right guys. But I think this is an important first step to get that trust down between those players and coaches here in spring practice and start building towards something, a great relationship there in the fall. It's a big deal.
Mike, what's the biggest question you have around this Alabama football team?
Well, listen, obviously everybody's going to point to the secondary. You know, I want to know where we're going to start to rebuild from some of the names. I mean, it's been such a luxury to have guys like Minka Fitzpatrick and Ronnie Harrison. Boy, you really felt good when just Levi Wallace busts on the scene last year. Out of nowhere, all of a sudden, he becomes a huge cog as well. Anthony Averett, rounded out a nice career. And so when you look at, the 6 guys you're losing out of the secondary, how are we going to cover? Listen, I think more so than maybe any time when I've watched, the SEC West, we're having to cover some seriously good spread teams with some great wide receiver corps. You look down at Texas A&M, they're going to spread it out a little bit. Ole Miss is still going to be Ole Miss with the wide receivers they have. LSU, I mean, boy, the length and the speed they have out wide this year. I don't know who's going to throw it to them down at LSU, but the length and the speed they have is going to be incredible. And obviously Auburn in their passing game with Jarrett Stidham as well. So I want to see who's that next man up in the secondary, who's that new Minka Fitzpatrick, who's that utility player, who's the role players. Where are we going to find these guys at? I think obviously we've got some good talent in those spots, but we didn't hit on as many DBs as we wanted to a year ago. And some of those guys that are younger are being thrust into those roles maybe before Nick Saban wanted them to be. I think right now, when you start to establish really that dominance of guys in that room and start to see those alpha dogs start to pull out in front of others, I want to know who those names are going to be. Is it going to be a Shaheem Carter or somebody else back there in the secondary, Deontay Thompson? I want to see which of those names at the end of spring are starting to evolve, because we really haven't seen many of those guys. We haven't. We haven't seen a lot of those names back there in the secondary and had to really rely on them. So now is the time to start separating yourself.
Mike, let me ask you how Nick Saban goes about trying to fight complacency from setting in, just with your knowledge of the way that Nick Saban goes through the process, because when you win a national title, is human nature to sort of take it easy a little bit, right? Kick back a little bit. This team's going to hear how great they are. They're probably going to be the number 1 team going into 2018 season. How does Nick Saban handle the complacency issue?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and obviously, I'm very thankful at times, Ryan, that we won my senior year, because it would have been tough. You saw what happened in 2010. A lot of those guys, it's maybe the most talented team Nick Saban's had. They lose 3 games, and some games they really shouldn't have lost in 2010. So you touched on it. It's tough. I think that Nick Saban is going to have to break it down into small. For us, a lot of the times it was, well, you lost this game to Utah, man. You can't believe you embarrassed yourself like that. Or you lost this game to Mississippi State and Starkville. Can't believe you guys did that. I think you break it down into smaller portions. From what I understand about Nick Saban, the way he's been the last couple of years, show this team how close they were to losing the game against Georgia. Show them, how they could have given up this touchdown pass to Georgia. Or maybe a guy got deep on the secondary and Jake Fromm just couldn't find him. Show them how close you were to really letting that game get away. I think that's what you have to do. Don't show Tua, the pass that he made at the end of the game. Show him the interception he threw. Show him the sack he took. I think when you break it down on an individual basis, that's what Nick Saban's good at doing. I'll never forget that. I think it was back in 2008. We beat South Carolina at home. He didn't show us any of the good plays. I think we were 5-0 or 6-0 at the time. He didn't show us the 246 rushing yards Mark Ingram had. He showed us Mark Barron dropping a pick 6 on the way into the end zone before he even got to the end zone, drops it on the 1-yard line. So he's good at capturing those moments and letting you understand just how close you are to defeat and just how good you have to be in certain instances. And I have no doubt that's the string that he's going to try to pull with this team. Break it down into smaller plays and show this team where they can definitely be better. And I think that, with the new coaches in the room, we'll be able to get that message across pretty easily.
I mean, Mike, when you look at this offensive side of the football, there's a reason to be excited. Someone told me this weekend. If it works out where Tua Tagovailoa wins the starting job at the University of Alabama, they have a potential to have 9 5-stars on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, it's incredible when you look at it, isn't it?
It's
and
fun.
Obviously, like I said, you can poke holes in what you think the secondary will be. I still think the defense is going to be good. I trust Nick Saban with their secondary, but I've been posed the question. What happens if Jalen starts? What happens if Tua starts? Listen, for most of the year next year, Ryan, I'm not sure it's going to matter. I'm really not. I'm not sure that it'll get to a breaking point anytime soon. I think that you'll see well into the season before Nick Saban is forced to kind of make a decision in that quarterback role, because you look at the talent out wide, the wide receiver position. That offensive line should be as good as it's been in years. And with Damian Harris returning to the running back core, they really are an incredibly well-rounded group on this offense. I think you come down to, listen, you've got a choice of 2 great quarterbacks, in my opinion, and I think that they really are going to have a good shot at breaking some records that year. I don't want to put any pressure on Michael Locksley and Dan Enos, but really, they've got all the things in the world to work with. They don't have an incredible year offensively this year. I'm going to be extremely let down. The weapons are there. The personalities are there. The well-roundedness. I mean, they can run the ball. They can throw the ball. And so I think this is going to be really an earth-shattering year offensively for Bama.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I'm excited to see this offensive side of the football, offensive line, wide receivers, the backs. I mean, you talk about there's competition at every single position. Even though we're talking about the guys that are cemented there, they're going to have to maintain those spots. I mean, you look at a guy like Jonah Williams, who has been a 2-year starter. Can he hold on at left tackle, or do you get a guy like Alex Leatherwood that comes in and gets some of his reps?
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, I guess. Maybe
sure.
You say right.
Yeah, right.
It's Jedrick Wills. I mean, listen, you had a hard time keeping that guy off the field last year, and you saw what he's able to do in certain right tackle situations, coming in and splitting time with Matt Womack. And you look at what could be. I mean, really, when you talk about Ross Pierschbaker, what he has meant to this offense over the last few years, there's just so many different combinations you could possibly have up front. You know, who do you play at center position? Who do you play at the left tackle? Who do you play at the right tackle? I feel comfortable with any amount of the combinations, honestly. I mean, I get excited and get thinking about it because I don't think there's a bad option. I think there's combinations that might work out better, and I think there's guys in certain places that are better in certain situations. But I don't think you look at one of these combinations of offensive linemen of the 7 or 8 deep that they're going to have that really are great SEC linemen and think, boy, I hope that guy doesn't get on the field. I just think that they have such a depth of talent. And not only that, but they have guys that are hungry. I've already heard about Jedrick Wills and Alex Leatherwood coming into work right away. These guys are hungry to get on the field for a national championship caliber team, and they're anxious to get their reps in too. And so I think it's going to be an interesting competition. I'm going to call it a competition, but it's really just being able to find the correct 5 warm bodies to put in there. But it's exciting nonetheless. I get goosebumps thinking about the offensive line play that we're going to be able to witness next year.
I do too. I mean, those big bruisers, because that's where the game is won and lost. I mean, if we talk about this passing attack that we're anticipating, if those big guys, the big nasties up front, don't get the job done, it's like that Tua Tagovailoa to Devontae Smith. You go back and watch that play. To me, what sealed that play is Alex Leatherwood on the outside. If he doesn't do his job, We're not talking about the Devontae Smith catch.
I completely agree. And really, it's the ability of these guys. When you look at the strength that they have in their hips, and I've talked to you a couple of times in the show about it, the hip roll, they get that straight from Scott Cochran. And they're doing power cleans, and they're doing hang cleans, and they're doing deep squats, making sure they get parallel. And you see these videos come out where guys are squatting 550, guys are squatting 600. I just think it's incredibly exciting to look at this offense and think, boy, you're going to have Devontae Smith beat guys over the top, and then you're going to have Najee Harris on a screenplay breaking somebody off in the flat. And then guess what? The end of that third quarter, the beginning of that fourth quarter, when that clock turns over and that 4 hits and Scott Cochran's putting them up and down, those big uglies get to go to work, and they get to roll those hits, and they get to put those double teams together, and they get to pick up these defensive linemen and throw them back into these linebackers and allow Damian Harris and Najee Harris to pick up 3 and 4 yards and 5 yards and 6 yards on first down. That's poetic to me, Ryan. You know me, man. That is poetry in motion when you start to set up some of those scenarios. And I have full awareness that it's going to happen a lot of times next year in those specific situations.
I mean, it just sort of kind of gets back to not being as one-dimensional and being that balanced offense that Nick Saban has come to love here in T-Town.
Yeah, it really does. It's exciting. And listen, for all the good things that Brian Dable did last year, you can't take anything away. But for me, there were some head-scratching moments. So, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this at certain times? And I think that, listen, you're going to have Tua playing quarterback at times next year, and obviously I'm not going to forecast that, that he's definitely going to be the guy. But listen, Tua can move around, he can scramble, he can do it with his arm, and then you have just an embarrassment of weapons behind him in the running back position. Even our tight end group is going to be good next year. And so I think when you mold all those together, they should be able to do whatever they want to offensively under Michael Locksley.